How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we studied Daf Ein Zayin, Daf 77 of Masechet Nedarim, friends. Well, today we talk about like Nedarim and kind of stuff, right? Yesterday at the end of the Daf we were talking about like when's the time for Nedarim, so we talk a shtickle about time, Shabbos, things like that. Friends, we're going to start Daf Ein Zayin, Amud Aleph, all the way at the top. Tanan also we learned Nedarim. Okay. Mefir Nedarim b'Shabbos. Okay, you can do Hafaras Nedarim, so a husband can be Mefer the Nedarim of his wife on Shabbos. V'nishalom Nedarim shein l'tzorech Shabbos, and you can also do Ataras Nedarim, right? If a fellow made a neder, he can go to a Chacham and be matir. You can do Ataras Nedarim on Shabbos if it is if it's related to a need of Shabbos. Then you can do Ataras Nedarim on Shabbos. So the Shad is, so clearly we're saying Nishalom Nedarim shein l'tzorech Shabbos. So clearly we're saying that when it comes to Ataras Nedarim, a fellow makes a neder and he wants to go to a sage in order to permit it, Taurus Nedarim. So you can only do that on Shabbos if it's L'tzorech HaShabbos, if it's related to a need, something necessary for Shabbos. The shaila is, what about the ratio? When it says Mefirim Nedarim b'Shabbos, that a husband can be made for the Nedarim of his wife on Shabbos, is that also L'tzorech HaShabbos? Right? Or is that even if it's not L'tzorech HaShabbos? So Yibaylu, the Taka asked this kasha, Mefir Nedarim b'Shabbos L'tzorech HaShabbos. So when we say that a husband can be made for the Nedarim of his wife on Shabbos, is that only if it's a Tzorech HaShabbos, if it's related to a necessity of Shabbos? Or Dilma Afilu Shelo L'tzorech? Or maybe even if it's unrelated to something about Shabbos, she says, I don't know, she doesn't want to eat pizza. I don't know, maybe you can argue though that eating pizza is Einik Shabbos. So, but it's some, maybe even something that's unrelated to Shabbos, so the husband can nonetheless be made for that on Shabbos. Tashma Kamanir, the Tanu Rav Zuti Devei Rav Popi, Ein Mefir Nedarim Ela L'tzorech HaShabbos. Says Rav Zuti Devei Rav Popi that Hafaras Nedarim, a husband being mefer, annulling the vow of his wife, that is only if it's L'tzorech HaShabbos, only if it is Shabbos related, if the vow was Shabbos related. Amar Rav Ashi, says Rav Ashi, Halo Tnan Hachi, but we learn in our Mishnah, Nadra im Chashecha Meifirla ad shelo techshach. 1 second, says Rav Ashi, our Mishnah says that if on Shabbos afternoon she makes the wife makes a neder, so the husband can be made for the neder only until nightfall, until Motzoi Shabbos, until it becomes nighttime. The Omat L'tzorech HaShabbos, and if you say L'tzorech HaShabbos in Shelo L'tzorech HaShabbos lo, and if you're saying that on Shabbos the husband can only be made for Nedarim of his wife that are necessities of Shabbos related to Shabbos, so my irya chashecha afilu besoch hayom eno yachol lohafer the shelo l'tzorech. So then why is the Mishnah making it all about making sure that you're mefer the neder before it becomes nighttime? I mean, even during the daytime on Shabbos he can't necessarily be mefer the neder if it's not related to a need of Shabbos, right? So meaning Rav Zuti Devei Rav Papi says that a husband can only be made for the neder of his wife if it's L'tzorech HaShabbos. But it doesn't seem to be the case in our Mishnah. Our Mishnah had said that if on Shabbos afternoon his wife makes a neder, he can only be made for it until nightfall. Why are we making it about if it's night or day? Even if it's day, apparently it's not so posh that he would be able to be made for the neder, because it would still have to be L'tzorech Shabbos. But the Mishnah doesn't seem to be focusing on that. So rather, says the Gemara Tanoi, it's taka machlokas Tanoim about whether the neder, he can only be made for the neder if it's a Tzorech HaShabbos. Hafaras Nedarim kol hayom, that we had said yesterday. We saw the machlokas between the Tanakama and the Gemara called the Chacham. We'll see in a second. Hafaras Nedarim kol hayom. The Tanakama says you could that you can be made for the nedarim. The husband can be made for the nedarim of his wife until the nighttime. Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon Amru me'eis le'eis. Whereas Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda, and Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon said you have 24 hours. So therefore, that changes things. So Lamanda Amru kol hayom in Tvei lo. So according to the Tanakama, who says that the husband can only be made for the nedarim of his wife until evening, well then there's a greater sense of urgency. Afilu shelo l'tzorech HaShabbos mefer. So because he only has until nightfall, So then if his wife makes a neder on Shabbos afternoon and comes nightfall, the husband won't be able to be mefer anymore, so then he could be mefer even on Shabbos, even shalol l'tzorech HaShabbos. Leman de Omer me'es le'es, but according to the Chacham, according to Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda, who said me'es le'es, that you have 24 hours, so then even if his wife makes a neder on Shabbos afternoon, he would still, if his wife makes a neder on Shabbos afternoon, he would have until Sunday afternoon. Well, in that case, the tzorech HaShabbos and shalol the tzorech HaShabbos law. He would only be able to be mefer on Shabbos if the neder was related to a necessity of Shabbos, because since according to them he has 24 hours anyways, so then only be made for the neder if it's related, if it's Shabbos related, if it's tzorech HaShabbos. If not, wait till after Shabbos. You have 24 hours. V'nishalin l'nedarim she'en l'tzorech HaShabbos. So we had said earlier that when it comes to Ataras Nedarim, that if a fellow makes a neder, he's not going to eat pizza, and he decides he wants to be, do Ataras Nedarim, so you can only do Ataras Nedarim on Shabbos if it's related to a necessity of Shabbos. Ibailu, they ask a kasha, Kishlohoya loim pnai, miba'od yom. Do we say that on Shabbos you could be matir a neder, you can go to a chacham, be matir a neder on Shabbos? We say if it's a necessity of Shabbos. Now, what if there was time before Shabbos? So do we say that you can only be matir a neder on Shabbos if it's the tzorech HaShabbos, also as long as you didn't have an opportunity before Shabbos to be matir it? Shlohaya loim pnai, o dilma kshahaya loim pnai. Or could it be that even if there was time before Shabbos, still you would be able to be matir a neder on Shabbos if it's a tzorech HaShabbos? So Tashma, there's dakiku le rabbanon levrei de Rav Zutra brei de Rav Zeira afilu b'nedarim shoyloim pnai mibod yom. That the rabbis were matir a neder for Rav Zutra brei de Rav Zeira, even though there was time before Shabbos that they could have been matir it, and nonetheless they were matir the neder on Shabbos. Sover Rav Yosef l'meimun shalom nedarim b'Shabbos b'yochid mumche in b'shlosh adiotos lo. Rav Yosef thought to say that when we say that you could do Ataras Nedarim on Shabbos, so specifically do Ataras Nedarim with one expert judge as opposed to three, just regular old people, mishum de mischazik dina, because if you have three regular old people, right, Ataras Nedarim just needs to be with three Tom, Dick, and Harrys, as we're about to see in a second. And therefore, if Yosef thought to say, look, if you could be matir and neder on Shabbos, do it with a yochid mumche, right? Because you have a choice. Either you can have one single expert judge, or you can have three just regular old Tom, Dick, and Harrys who sit down as a beis din after shul. So if you're doing it on Shabbos, then do it with a yochid mumche so that it doesn't look like a regular beis din. Because of course we don't adjudicate on beis din on Shabbos. Abaye, whereas Abaye argues and says, look, Kevin, the Svirla, and since we hold that when it comes to Hataras Nedarim, afilu mu'umad, afilu bekrovim, afilu balayla, you could do Hataras Nedarim standing. Usually a beis din needs to be sitting, but Hataras Nedarim you could do standing, even if they're relatives, right? You can have relatives be in the beis din, even if it's at night. Normally you have to, right? Normally the beis din would have to be sitting. There can't be any relatives. It has to be done during the day. But none of these things are relevant when it comes to Ataras Nedarim, and therefore lo mischazik adina. Therefore, Abaye says he's not really super concerned that people are going to confuse Ataras Nedarim with the regular beis din, since there's all these differences anyways, and therefore you can even use three adjotas. I think that there's a fellow outside in the park or in that area. He's got a loud motorbike, and he's trying to make a whole scene. I mean, I don't know this because I don't see, but I'm trying to sort of create a narrative around what I hear. I hear a loud motorbike. What I assume it's a young fellow. He's trying to make a splash, trying to, he wants the whole neighborhood to be aware that he's got a motorbike. So, okay, probably is unaware that I'm recording Babylon Talmud. Omer Abba, Omer Rav Huna, Omer Rav. So Rav Abba says the name of Rav Huna, in the name of Rav, Aloche, that the Aloche is, what do you think? Cliffhanger, what do you think the Aloche is? Mefir Nedarim Balayla, you could be mefer a neder at night. Obviously you could be mefer a neder at night. We learned in our Mishnah that if she's mefer, right, that if she makes a neder on Friday nights, then the husband could be made for the neder. Right, if she makes the neder on Friday night, he can be made for the neder Friday night, Shabbos day. He has the whole Shabbos to do it. So we see that he can be made for a neder at night. So where am I? Let's read that again. Right. So Amar halacha mafir nedarim b'layla v'masnisani nadra b'layla Shabbos. That if she makes a neder on Friday night, he's got the whole Shabbos, including Friday night. So le'ema, rather I'll say halacha, that the halacha is nishalin b'layla, that you could do hatoras nedarim at night, right? So Reb Abba said the name of Rafuna, the name of Rab, that the halacha is that you could do hatoras nedarim at night. Amar Reb Abba le Rafuna, and Reb Abba says to Rafuna, Amar Rav, did Rav really say this, that you could do hatoras nedarim at night? Amar le Ishti. Rafuna says, well, when I said this to Rav, that you could do hataras nedarim at night, he kept quiet. So Amar, so Abba pushes Rafuna further. He says, Ishtik ka'amart o shisi ka'amart. Was he, trying to, keep you quiet because he didn't really agree with you, or was he saying, no, Yitaka did a great job? Amavika by Oven is dakik le Rav, the Rabba b'kituna devei Rav. So the Gemara says that Ravika Bar Oven says that Rav was matir and neder for Rabba in the Beis HaMedrash. Omed, he was standing yichidi by himself uva laila, and it was at night. So we see that yes, Rav himself was matir and neder at night. So we see that Rav was on board with the concept of doing hataras nedarim at night. Omer Rabba, Omer of Nachman, halacha, that the halacha is nishalin nedarim, that you can do hataras nedarim omed yichidu uvalayla, standing by yourself at night, uvishabbos uvekrovim, as well as on Shabbos with relatives. You can do hataras nedarim in all sorts of contexts. Vafilu aya loyan pnai mibaod yom, and even if there was time during from before Shabbos, still you could do hataras nedarim on Shabbos, even if there was an opportunity before Shabbos started. Omed, fact the Gemara. 1 second. Rav Nachman had said that, right, just said that you could do hataras nedarim even standing. Is that really true? V'atani, we learned about it. So Yard, we saw this in Eruvin. Yard Rabban Gamliel men achomer, that Rabban Gamliel got down from the chomer, from the donkey. V'nisatef, and he wrapped himself. V'yoshav, and he sat down. V'hitir lo nidron, was matir and neder. So we see that Rabban Gamliel took being matir and neder, took hataras nedarim very seriously. He got off his donkey, he sat on the floor, made sure to be sitting. Rabban Gamliel sovar ein poskim b'achrote. Well, Rabban Gamliel holds that you can't simply say, look, do you feel bad about it? Do you regret making the neder? And that's enough. He doesn't hold that way. And therefore, mi'aker nidra ba'inon, you have to actually do research and uproot the neder. Uvar yune, and you have to actually focus. Ahochi yoshav, that is why Rabban Gamliel got off the donkey and sat down. Because he felt that it actually needed proper investment. Rav Nachman Sovar poslim b'achrote, whereas Rav Nachman holds that you can say, "Oh, do you feel bad about it?" If you feel bad about it, then the vow is null and void, and therefore Rav Nachman says you can even do it standing. And therefore you can even do it standing. Amalei Rav Nachman says over to Rav Nachman, Chazimar Haimei Rabbanon. Rav says to Rav Nachman, did you see this young whippersnapper, Dosimi Mayrave, who came? Did you see this rabbi who came from Eretz Yisrael, Omar, and he said, "Is that Kiku le Rabbanon le Vrei de Ravuna Bar Oven v'Sharu le Nidrei v'Omer le Zil uvay Rachme al Nafshach dechotos." That says Rav Nachman, says Rav to Rav Nachman, did you hear about this rabbi who came from Eretz Yisrael? And he said that the rabbis were matir neder for Ravuna Bar Oven, for the son of Ravuna Bar Oven. But they said to him, Zil uvay rachme al nafshach, go and pray for your soul, dechotos, because you sinned. The Tani Rav Dimi, Achva de Rav Safra, the Rav Dimi, the brother of Rav Safra, taught, Kol hanoder that a fellow who makes a neder, even though he fulfills the neder, nonetheless, Nikrachote is called a sinner. Rav Zvid, Rav Zvid said, where do we have a pasuk to teach that he would be considered a sinner? The pasuk says, look, if you refrain from making nedarim, from making vows, then you won't have any sins. Well, the flip side, therefore, is that, but if you don't hold yourself, if you don't prevent yourself from doing, from making a neder, so then there will be a sin, and therefore they said to him, because you made a neder, you sinned. Tanya, we learn in a brisa. Homer Leishta, a fellow says to his wife, Konedarim shetaduri, yevshi shetaduri. Any nedarim that you will make, I'm not on board with it. I'm not okay with it. Ein ze neder, or he says to her, the neder that you made is not a neder lo amar klum. It's not like he's being mekayim it. Meaning, you could have, when he says, right, Konedarim shetaduri, yevshi shetaduri. Any nedarim moving forward that you make, I'm not on board, implying that the ones until now he is on board. But nonetheless, we say it's not be making it is Allah Amar Klum. Yofil Osis, but if he says Yutaka did good, Vein Kamosech, and there's nobody like you, the Imlo Nodart Madir Echani, and if you wouldn't have made the neder, I would have made it for you. So in those cases, he seems to be on board with it, and he's being mekayim the neder, and it's a good neder. Lo yomar adam liishto b'Shabbos. A fellow should not say to his wife on Shabbos, "Mufor lichi, botul lichi," that I'm being made for your neder, I'm being mevatel, I'm being nullifying your neder. He shouldn't be so explicit. As he would normally say it during the week. Ella, rather, he says to her, "Tzliva achli, tzliva shasi." She says that she's not going to eat pizza. He doesn't say I'm being made for the neder. He says, "Look, here's some pizza, eat it." And the neder goes away because she ate the pizza. Rabbi Yochanan says, Rabbi Yochanan and the husband would have to be mevatel the vow in his heart. Tani, we learn in the Brisa, Bisham says B'Shabbos mevatel belibo b'chomutz b'svaso, that on Shabbos he's mevatel the vow in his heart, and during the week he has to have to say something. We say, Whereas Basil says, look, either during the week or on Shabbos, doesn't matter. Your heart is enough. It's enough to use your heart. You don't need to. You don't have to say anything. Friends, that was the fine sign of Masechta Nedarim. I hope you enjoy. Peace out.